You know what it is. You ready for me to say it? Well, hello. Well,
Well,
hello.
hello.
Well, hello. Hello, Mike Manley.
Hello. Hello, Jamar Nicholas.
Mike Manley, what are you reading?
I just got this new collection of graphic novels by
Oh, wow. Who is that? Ulysses Malas. Ulysses Malasanya. Ulysses
yeah,
Malasanya. That's pretty
yeah.
good.
He did 3 graphic novels. Curios.
Mm-hmm.
They collected them all into one edition. I'd seen this, I think, on Twitter. Somebody was showing it, and it was sort of interesting. So and I love looking at the French and the European graphic novels. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
ordered this from Stephen Ing the other day.
Oh, I love Stephen Ings.
Yes, I do. My
I
wallet
used,
doesn't love it, but I love it.
yeah, I haven't been about that catalog life in a while. I was a big Bud Plant guy for a long time, and I used to love that whole thing they would do in San Diego, where you go through it was almost like Disneyland on the floor of
Yeah,
San
yeah.
Diego.
Your wallet would start trembling when you got close. You knew I must be near Bud Plant. Yeah.
The ground starts shaking.
Yeah. The other guy I used to like there was Tony Areola. And he would have all the reprint collections of like the Raymond and the Foster and the Johnny Hazards, and he'd have a bunch of stuff there. So there was like 3 places that I would hit right away, and I could get graphic now, some Lieutenant Blueberries, whatever was coming out at the time. And you blow like $1,000 the first day, bam.
Well, what's funny? Just thinking about doing those San Diego shows back then. It's kind of like you'd have to pack an extra suitcase because you had to almost stop yourself from shopping.
I don't need to take these shoes back home. I'm done wearing shoes. I'd be like a hippie. Put an extra Mobius in there. Got to get rid of the shoes.
Mr. Bailey, you have to wear pants to board this airplane. Thank you.
Take some graphic novels like a bamboo dress.
Well, guys, let's just say our hellos. Welcome back to Pencil to Pencil, your favorite pandemic podcast. We're now another year older. Thanks for sitting on your hands while we had our holiday hiatus. My name is Jamar Nicholas, your internet best friend, and Johnny Carson. That's right. Or also the Black John, your Philadelphia tour guide to comics. Welcome. I'm joined, as always, by my best bud and modern master of comics, Mike Manley. Say hi, Mike.
Hi, Jamar.
For all of you guys that have been watching us for a while, you know that Mike hates me talking about him like that. So, but it's well deserved.
Stop objectifying me.
Guys, I know your Wednesdays have been lonely and cold without having us on. But I'm happy to report that Mike and I and Brett, who was smiling above us with a disembodied head, are energized, and we're ready to come full throttle in 2021 with some fantastic guests, some great new segments, and I'm excited. And we can start even with tonight with our special guest, Steven Silver. And I'm going to bring him in a second. But Mike, before we bring Steven in, Steven was about to jump. I can see him. Everybody's asking, Mike, how have we been? How have you been? Because they miss us.
I'm okay.
Yeah. The doctor says, the doctor said, I said, Doc, it hurts when I do that. He said, don't do that.
Don't do that.
But yeah, I think beyond what's going on in the world, and one of the rules of Pencil to Pencil, we don't talk politics, is that everybody's pretty exhausted in their own way. So
the most exhausting year of my adult life,
yeah.
And the end of the year was really exhausting. because my cat Cornwell, I had to put him down. So
Yeah.
2 days before Christmas, so my Christmas sucked.
Yeah. Sip of coffee for Cornwall.
Yeah, and so I hope and 21's not starting out great. So, hopefully by the time we're in like
24?
99 or 2099, things will be good.
Oh man, I know it's been wild, but you know what? We have each other, and that's all that matters.
Even though we can't touch each other, we can only view each other.
I like that. We'll view each other.
I've been doing a lot of Zooming. I would say that is probably the thing. I'm sure a lot of people are doing that Zooming,
Yeah.
I Zoomed with my mom and dad the other day. I Zoom several times a week, with our buddies John Hebink and Scott Cohn and Brett and a bunch of other people. We cartoonist Zoom as we work. So that's
help. That helps.
If this had, like I always say, if this had happened like 20 years ago, it would have been
a wrap.
10 times. Yeah, 10 times worse. But but because of being able to do all this great technology, we're able to do this podcast, and have great guests on, and share the love of comics and animation and illustration with
and Kirby
hands.
And Ditko. Oh, Ditko. So before we bring Steven in, and I don't want to keep him waiting anymore, I have to give a shout out to our sponsors. A big Dookie shout out to our good buddies at Graphicsly. Look at the John up there. You know the John, who create Clip Studio Paint, the comic book artist tool of choice. And also our best bud, John Morrow, who is the publisher at Tomorrow's Publishing. Tomorrow's Publishing publishes our great magazine, Draw, with an exclamation point, where Mike Manley is the editor-in-chief, and I am your crusty critic, doing art reviews and also interviewing people from time to time.
Yeah, so, I've been actually talking to John about doing some point this year, maybe like an annual of Draw.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe I can do a fresh interview with somebody. That'd be fun. So, all right, let's bring him in. I'm really excited. Thanks to Sweet. Thanks for everybody who's giving well wishes to the passing of Mike's cat. I want to bring in a really good friend of ours and also an icon in the business. It seems like we have a lot of quadruple threats on these days, Mike. Steven Silver. I was going to do my NPR voice and read his bio, but I'm not going to do that. We'll just talk. But Steven, beyond all the other things he's done, he's known as a fantastic genre-changing character designer. And I'll hold up his book, The Silver Way. If you've seen this, I helped kickstart this. This is a Bible for character design techniques, tips, and tutorials. I know a lot of cartoonists who are famous cartoonists in their own right who study at the altar of Steven Silver. So I'd love to spin our first episode back talking to Steven and kicking it. So let's bring him in. Steven Silver, welcome to Pencil to Pencil.
Hey guys, Jamar, Mike, this is awesome. I love hearing you guys kind of talk about, reminiscing about good old Bud Plant back in the days, going to Comic-Con. That was a good time.
Yeah. I even went through I was cleaning out some stuff and I came across like 5 or 6 old Bud Plant catalogs. It was like memory lane.
And he went out of business, didn't he? Or he just stopped doing San Diego?
Yeah, he just had, I'm not sure if it's fully out of business. I know that he had to keep getting smaller and smaller, as the years went by. But I do remember, I can't remember, Mike or Jamar, you might know, there was this guy who used to sit within Bud Plant, I think, and he had a little tiny little square inch of space in his thing, but he would sell all the really old books. And that's why I first picked up the famous artist course, Norman Rockwell and all that. It's just like before all the online stuff and just seeing that. I just remember that was a big purchase that year. You're right. When you like go in $1,000, you're just like, what happened?
Yeah. It's like San Diego's like the money vacuum. Immediately, as soon as you get out of the airport, you just like money just starts being siphoned.
That's right.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, especially in the last couple of years before the pandemic, people started making big decisions about if it was even strategically worth them going to San Diego anymore. Because it used to be, the vacation, right? We're going to save up all year, we're going to hit San Diego, but then it's like, yo, I'm going to be in a hole like $10,000 if I go to San Diego. Is it worth it?
Right. Yep. Going all those places. How many conventions were you doing a year on? Like the most you did in 1 year? What would you say?
Well, Mike, you started punching your production up right before the pandemic. You were doing more shows than you used to.
Probably the most shows I did was in the early 2000s, right when I started self-publishing, because I would go to different, like I used to go to the WonderCon, I go to San Diego, I go to the New York show, I went to Heroes Con, I always went to Baltimore. There was a bunch of shows. The Wizard shows are like around Philly. And then I sort of slowed down when I went back to school. I didn't really do many shows, but I think 2000. I mean, I saw you last year in San Diego, but that was the first San Diego I'd done since 2005. Oh, and the thing that was really different is, I mean, that was like the Lord of the Rings was a big deal, they had all. But I mean, people like you or me or Jamar would go there to meet guys like us, and you would network, and I'd always end up getting work out of it. But it got to the point where it's like everybody was being swept away by the crowd, and nobody was really doing business. You were just being exhausted because there's like 10 bajillion people there, and like even I think you would have to make plans early to go dinner. Like you go around, you get like 5 or 6 people, and that would be it. Right. Yeah. And you go, okay, we're going to go, and you'd leave at like 5 o'clock, go get your dinner, because otherwise
forget it.
Yeah. Trying to waiting for that little trolley car thing to move to go to the gas lamp district. It was just it's like a zombie movie. It's ridiculous. You got to get in a cab and get out of there. Yeah.
Good times.
But you've been doing it every year for how long now?
Yeah, I started 18 years ago, and I remember because that was in 2002, and that was the year my son was born, where I had a booth that was having a booth that year and invested money in all this comics, everything, the booth, and I was just like, the baby, we ended up getting induced. The baby was ready, but I'm just like, we got to have our son before the convention, because if we don't, there's no way I can go to the convention and you have the baby. And my wife was just so like, yeah, I agree. And the doctor said, hey, no problem. This is, it was like about a week earlier. So that's when it was, like a week earlier. So it was like, it was totally safe. And here 18 years later, I got up, so I always remember it was 18 years ago was my first comic show that I ever set up at. And that was, San Diego Comic-Con.
Now, what were you doing? What were you doing at that time? Were you character designing? Were you?
Yeah, I was, that must've been 2002. So I think that might've been right when like Kim Possible might've been coming out. No, that sheet came out. I don't even know when that came out.
We're getting old.
Yeah, man, we're getting old. I don't even remember.
Was that 2005?
Yeah, so maybe we were in development with it. I think I was at Disney, because Clerks must have definitely happened. I think Clerks, the animated series, had already happened, or was just getting out there as well back then. So I was in the studios, because I started at Warner Brothers in 1997. And then set up my first booth doing my own stuff in 2002. Yeah, so that was interesting span.
So what were you doing in 97?
So that's what I started before. So I was doing caricatures at amusement parks. That's how I kind of got started when I was like 18, and then I got hired doing t-shirt design for a company called No Fear. If you guys ever remember, No Fear,
that was big. Yeah.
It was huge, and they were in San Diego and Carlsbad, and so I was working out there, and then I would always join. I was part of this great organization called the National Cartoonist Society, and they had a San Diego hub of cartoonists would meet once a month, and they would always have a guest speaker. And one of their guest speakers was a guy that worked on that show Freakazoid. He was a storyboard artist at Warner Brothers, and he did his guest speaking, and I met with him after. I showed him my work, and he said, "Hey, pretty good. Keep in touch." And it took about a year, and I kept in touch, and he invited me up to Warner Brothers, and then he showed my portfolio to a production called Hysteria. So it was if you remember that show on Warner Brothers, and it was very caricature heavy. So that was my background, because I never went to art school or anything, so that's all I had was my caricature background, and I was doing some life drawing. Smash that together in a portfolio. They gave me a test, and then that's where it started back then.
Wow.
And that, character design straight off the bat. And I didn't even know what character design was. They're like, "Hey, I remember I went back to San Diego, and I got a phone call, and they said, 'Hey, we want to hire you.' And the first thing was, this was like pre-cell phones or anything. And I'm just like, scared, because I didn't want to move to LA. I hated the idea of going to LA. I was living in San Diego. I don't want to go to LA, all that traffic and smog and everything. I'm just like, forget it. And and then I was just, she convinced me, "Hey," not convinced me, just tell me all about it. And I'm like, "Okay, well, thanks, bye." And she's like, wait, don't you want to know how much you're going to make or when you're going to start? And I was in a different cloud, right? I was just like, I couldn't believe it was possible. I really didn't. I've always believed in trying stuff. I am hands down going to try everything. I am no way leaving this planet with regret. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I freaking try everything, and whether it fails or succeeds, it doesn't matter. And I knew that I'm just going to try this, and I try that, and I try this, and I try that. And it's like, that's what I'm always open to, is just if there's any sort of opportunity, if there's any little thing, I got my big ears, and I'm constantly, and listening, it's just like, what did that person say? Or did that person just say, keep in touch? Okay, I'm going to keep in touch. What was his name? And follow up. And I think that's where it got me into that position. And I had never done character design before, never done a turnaround before, never done anything. It was crazy. But at that time in animation, there was a little bit more time. This is a time when we had 65 show pickup, right? That's never 65 episodes. Are you kidding me? Though you're lucky if they do 4 or 5 now. Just that everyone's so scared to really commit anymore to stuff.
Stephen, let me ask a question, Mike, real quick. So, Stephen, at the beginning of this, when your first gig, I know you were real green, right? So, did you have anybody in the trenches that kind of helped guide you through it, or did you lean on a couple of certain people that helped you figure out the business from the inside?
Yeah, I was very thankful to, his name is Bob Doucette, and he was the first director that hired me. He's the one who hired me. He gave me the opportunity. He saw that I could do the characters. He saw that I was drawing, and then we had something in common. We both loved Mad Magazine. We both loved Mort Drucker. We both loved Jack Davis. And there was a bond and a connection, and he saw something in me. And when I went there, he basically just gave me a stack. He said, listen, I went in and I asked, hey, we need to do a turnaround. I'm like, what turnaround? What is it? How do you do it? And he actually took the time and showed me very quickly, but said, went to his drawer, grabbed a ton of model sheets from all the other shows, handed me this stack of model sheets and said, learn from these, draw from these. And that was where I took all those things and I became obsessed, and I'm just drawing and I'm copying. And, I was already putting videos on still. This was again before YouTube and all that, taking VHS tapes and putting it on pause and drawing from 101 Dalmatians and drawing from all these shows, just the stills and just trying to just soak it in. And it was very hard because I've always had a learning disability academically. I have always had trouble retaining information. And so that's why I did horribly. I couldn't go to college. I wasn't going to go there. I couldn't make it. And high school, I cheated my way all through high school. And luckily I have a twin brother who I was able to cheat off of, through high school. And it was just one of these things where it was very hard. So even though I was learning and practicing, I kept having to do it. But I think that's what led me to, my career path now is just like, I got to take it in and spit it out, take it out, spit it out. I'm not going to retain the information. Don't try to ask me a month from now after I've just broken down how to draw an ear and talking about the helix and the concha and everything else. Like a month from now, start to remember what those terms even are. It's like, it's an ear and there's a lobe, and yeah.
When you were doing it, would you like do it and go back to him and he would say, yes, this is working? Or, and I guess, did they have an art director that was separate or?
No, at the time he was basically directing and art directing. It was a huge crew. And I've never been on a crew since then, ever that big. It doesn't exist anymore in animation. It really, at these studios, there was one main overall director, and that was Bob Doucette. And now he does fine art. He got out of the animation. He does fine art painting. And he was overlooking, I think there were maybe about 4 other crews, which each had their own directors, or maybe 5 other crews. And each one of them had their own character designer and everything. I was hired off the bat to be the character designer fixing other character designers' work, which was crazy to me. And I didn't even know because I was now helping him because he was having to revise other people's work since he was the head guy. It was all coming down. So he decided I need a character designer who can help me take the load off my shoulder a bit, but also work on new characters for new shows that he had to do. So now, and so it was a weird position to be in because here I am as a complete green novice, don't even know what the hell I'm doing, having to just look over other people's work and make any suggestions or comments. So I was almost thrown with this immense burden, but it made me just, talk about jumping into a thing where I knew nothing about character design. And I just had to fake it till I made it, right? I was nervous every single day that I was going to get fired. There was always that looming over me that, God, man, they're going to hate this, because I was so self-defeating. And I was self-defeating in my own work and my own creations. I'm like, there's no way that I'm better. And I kept looking at guys that were at the studio at the time, like Bruce Timm was there, right? This guy's roaming the hallways. He was working, doing Batman at that time. And it's just like, you get these other guys. I'm just like, oh my God, these guys are like these giants. And it was a very nervous, scary situation. But I would say to anyone out there, just jump on in, just dive on in. Just they're better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? It's just like that's the thing. It's just like, I'm going in, man. I'm going in, and see what happens. And
Stephen, did you have anybody who felt like you kind of stepped over them when you first got there and was doing lead work? Like, did anybody was waiting for you in the parking lot next to your car? Like, oh, there he is. What's up, head designer?
Yeah, I felt it. There was definitely a feeling that was there. And one of the things eventually, I think what came from it led to just almost like a caricature war with people, where now they were like drawing characters, but I was the character artist and I was slamming them back. It was almost like someone's saying this and you're rapping back. They're saying this, your thing's like, great, which one? Oh, boom, boom, boom. And this was like the thing that was happening, and it was kind of weird. And there was some tension, I think, because just with a couple of individuals, everyone else was really cool. And very just always welcoming. I remember when I first got hired in there in animation, I just remember the experience and the feeling like, this is kind of weird, man. I'm now these cartoons, Bugs Bunny, all the Warner Brothers. I watched these things all my life. And here I am working in the same space as a lot of these same veterans that are there, and they're just down the hallway, just right over there. At that time, Hanna-Barbera, those guys were upstairs. Those guys, well, not straight away. They had closed Hanna-Barbera and they moved into the Warner Brothers building. Hell, then those guys were there, and you walk by these guys, and it was just like insane. But I remember there was a background layout artist, and she was phenomenal. Been working in animation her whole life, and came very friendly. And I was talking to her. I'm like, man, I can't believe it. Just this is so exciting. And she just the whole time her face was sour, just like she's all. You have no idea. You have no idea. I guess enjoy it right now, but you have no idea. And I'm like, what? This is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then, you go to the openings, and you go to we went to the theater, we went to the Warner Brothers lot, and they showed us the first episode, and it was just this big thing. I'm like, this is amazing. But eventually I did start to see a lot of that. I could feel it. You start just to feel the energy, right? Just around the studio of everyone, and you start to understand why, and you understand, the deadlines. Oh, okay, I don't have 3 weeks to noodle this design. I gotta get this thing out today. And so it threw on that sort of pressure, but I was ready for that because of my caricature training, because I had to draw caricatures in under 5 minutes. So I look at everything that I've done was this experience that, I was supposed to do that, because that propelled me to this next one. I dealt with rejection, like even the director, again, all the director's notes, go back, fix it, redo it. It wasn't always good enough. And I had to keep doing that. But I was used to having people rip up their drawings right in front of my face. In the theme park, I was used to having people spit on me. I was used to having people walk away and not pay. I was used to the pressure and the speed, and also the exhaustion of working 12 hours on a summer night at SeaWorld in San Diego, one face after another, and people thinking you're just a machine, and they have no regard for your wrist or anything else. Or, hey, I need to take a break. I've been waiting in line for 20 minutes, man. I was like, come on, man, listen, I've just been sitting. I got to take a break, getting in trouble for it was crazy, but it was all the battleground of training, to lead up to it.
No, I had heard before, because I know some other people have done caricatures, and maybe it might have been different at SeaWorld, but I heard like people choose you, and then you're paid on commission. Is that how it worked? Like you had to do so many an hour or so many a day, and there would be 3 or 4 people in some places. I don't know if that's how it was at SeaWorld.
Yeah, it was all different. So when I was working there, so we were all independent contractors. So there may have been 12 of us at one time, but there were maybe 4 different locations. So sometimes it'd be 2 people at one booth, 4 people at another, depends how busy it was. And then basically, they would, the patron would pick you, if a lot of people didn't even care, right? They were just, I can't even draw a stick figure. You're all great, and then you'd get some people who are like, oh, I'm going to wait for this artist specifically. They jump in, and what we were doing at that point, I think we were getting 30% commission. So whatever it was, if it was a $20 sale or something like that, we were getting like 30% or something like that. So whatever we did at the end of the day, so if I ended up having $1,000 day or a $2,000 day, I'm getting 30% of that. And then you were getting a percentage if you were able to sell the frame to go along with it. They'd give you a percentage of that. So you were, when I was 18 and I started, there were weeks where I was making $800, $1,000 when I was 18, making fun of people. It was just like, it was great. And then I moved to start doing it at bars. Then I started when I was 21. I went around to local bars in San Diego and said, hey, do you want me to provide, I could do caricature entertainment. I'll print the name of your bar on the bottom of the caricature, and they'll hang it up on their fridge or something, and they'll promote your thing. You guys just pay me like $75 and let me take tips. And they say, yeah, come on in. And so I would do that in different places and sit there, and you get drunk people paying me $20 a tip a caricature. And I'd walk out of a bar with just like $600 cash. It was crazy. And it was just doing caricatures, making fun of people. And then I started doing parties. Now people are hiring me. Oh, hold on. I'm just reacting because my dog was on the bridge and he's going crazy. My dog has jumped off of, I'm on a detached studio from my house. My dog jumped off of the second story of my house when he was younger. And I just want to make sure that it's not going to.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
He looks good. Okay.
You don't want to see him like hanging outside your window.
What's that?
You don't want to see him hanging outside your window. Here I am.
But and then doing private parties where I'm like charging $75 an hour, and then it would go to like $125 an hour, 2-hour minimum, and then I started making my whole career and living doing that. Yeah. There's my other little dog scratching at the door saying, "Let me in. Let me show you guys. This is Coco. This is that's
Hey,
Coco. Hey, Coco.
Is he a Jack?
And then she just got a little bed over there, and then I got my other dog, who's the crazy one, who is out there now. So, but he's a big bull mastiff and German Shepherd mix.
Wow, so that's a big dog. Stephen, one thing that always makes me really interested about a lot of the people that we bring on the show is that you coming into the animation industry, and I guess as you were saying, how the fog started to settle down and you started to see everybody for kind of how it really was. It seems like a lot of our buddies are propellants. They always move forward. But I'm sure you've been surrounded by people who are lifers, or they're just wrists, or the people that just kind of show up every morning and they do their thing and they punch the clock and they leave. But they're in the business.
Right.
But they work at Warner Brothers, or they work at Disney. But what do you think is the difference between somebody who is like stuck in a studio gig their whole career versus somebody that keeps moving forward? What's that X factor there?
I think that they just get comfortable and it more becomes scary. It just like I'm scared to. It's the fear. All of a sudden, the fear jumps in, and it's the fear factor of not being able to land that next gig or that next job, or that again. I think these are all the things just holding us back tremendously at that point. They again, you get comfortable. I know where the paychecks come in. I don't want to sometimes get into that freelance, world again. And it's just simply the unknown. And that's where I'm just such a believer. I feel like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've always been very entrepreneurial. Again, it's more because I just want to try stuff. I don't want to settle on anything. I just don't want to say that this is the norm, that you got to get hired as a studio artist and work for the studios for the rest of your life, or I just want to do this for the rest of my life. I look at none of this stuff as it should be a life sentence. So don't look at anything you do as a life sentence. It's not. It just becomes this temporary thing. But I always remember reading a book. I think it was by this guy named Wallace Wattles. And he had said that there's two types of people in this world. There's like the janitor and there's the salesman, right? And there's the janitor who will just kind of be the guy who's just comfortable, just tell me where to show up, what to do, all that. Then you get the salesman who's more of the, hey, let's move this. They keep moving forward. What happens in life sometimes is when the salesman gets thrust into a janitor type position and they come to realization that they shouldn't be there. Like, why am I doing this with my life? I'm better than this. Otherwise, you get the janitor who's now in the salesman position, who is uncomfortable talking to the public, being out in front of people, just wants to collect the check and just move on. So it's like identify really those two options. Who are you? I like to say to people, are you a Walt Disney or are you a Disney employee? And it comes down to that. It's just like, what is it? Not that there's anything wrong being a Disney employee, but like you get to decide, are you the one who's going to start your own magazine? Are you the one who's going to create your own comic book? Are you the one who's going to start your own t-shirt company, your own whatever? Or are you the person who just tell me where to show up? And I think you got to know that about yourself first before you do any of this. It's just like, just know who you are. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in this life, is to know thyself and to know who you are. And then you can start to say, you know what, I am this sort of person, and these are the sort of things that I know will make me happy and fulfill me. Let me pursue that. Because some people, again, they're chasing this dream. It's not even theirs, right? It's someone else's dream, someone else's idea. And that's what goes horribly wrong too.
Stephen, it's funny. Sometimes I use the analogy about baseball teams, right? Like there are people that are on the team. There's the star of the team, or the pros that get the high salaries. And then there's a guy that makes the hot dogs out in the park. But everybody's happy that they have something to do with the organization. But the levels are basically inside your head. Like, do you want to own the team, or do you want to come off the bench? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when people are also in school, you have these fantasies about what you want to do and what you think the business will be, right? Yeah. And like you said, some people are happy being the cog in the machine. And if they just could show up every day and draw Donald Duck for the rest of their life, that would be, it would just be the happiest camper. But also the churn and the difference in this, in that is that it's hard to do that now, even if you wanted to, right? Because there had guys who'd worked from the 30s into the 40s into the 50s into the 80s and retired. Yeah. It would be really hard to do that in any organization in animation now, because like you said, you get 5 shows at Netflix, they cancel it. Then you got to bop over and do something else. So it seems like it's when we got in, we were probably getting in at the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do think too now there's a lot more content availability now than there ever was, right? So we had the limitation of the networks and that was it. But now with streaming brought in this whole new dynamic to where Netflix can build their own animation building. Right now they're moving completely into animation and they're hiring all the people. They can literally starting their own studio, giving Disney a run for their money. And you can hire people, but there is such a big turnover. There's always going to be the limitation because there's still, you still got, say, like the Disney feature, the DreamWorks feature, those ones, and those guys are where a lot of those guys are rooted in there, right? Those are going to be the guys, the designers in there for a long time. They've gone through all the different things, so it does get harder to break through into those areas, for sure.
Right. Now, we were talking before the podcast how basically being a character designer or concept designer is like what everybody wants to do now. Like every art student, it used to be people wanted to do comics, but now you don't mean as many people that want to do comics. I mean, some people want to do web comics, but every student wants to be a character designer or a concept designer or a 2D animator. Like the last 10 years, most of the students that I would teach in the high school class wanted to do 2D. They love 2D. They didn't want to do, they watched 3D.
Right.
Wanted to do, I don't know if you, because you teach, so I don't know if that's your experience too, like the type of students that you're getting, or are you getting mostly professionals?
No. I'm getting, it's a mix. I'm getting a lot of people wanting to break into the industry, or just I get a lot of people who are actually wanting to do their own children's books or their own, like you said, web comics, but they don't know how to design. So there's a nice mix and flow of that. And I do think, but yeah, there's always been that big demand for people wanting to be character designers in the industry. That's the dream job. And here's the thing with that is like I do see quite a bit of turnover, right? There's shows, they keep popping up left and right. People can sneak in, sneak out. You got Amazon, Hulu, you got all these different areas. I think that the most important thing just for these designers are just you got to go above and beyond everyone else. There's, even though you got that idea, you have to just be so much better. There's no stopping that field. If you truly want this, and I feel like a lot of people who want it aren't willing to put in the work. That's what I come across a lot of the time. They're just like, what's the shortcut? Where's the pixie dust? Let me sprinkle something on me, right? And it's those people aren't going to be the ones who get there. It's going to be that smaller core. And it reminds me, if you don't mind, I'd love to throw Mort Drucker in there wherever I can, because he was my hero and my mentor, and I got to know him as a friend. And one thing that he said quite often, he said, when you look at any situation in regards to competition, he said, look at, if you take 100% of people and they all go for the same job, and maybe only 50% of them maybe get, said, hey, we like your stuff. Right. Then you're going to wait. What was it? I'm sort of butchering it right here. So you got 100% of people. They all go for the job. There's, you get the large percent of people that are going to get rejected and they're going to not even try again. Right. So then you got the 75% of people left. They try again and then they get rejected again. So then another 25% peel off. Then you get the next 50%. And he said, really, at the end of the day, you got about 25% of people out there are going to be a big competition in the scheme of things, because those are the people who are going to keep just getting up, as they keep getting knocked down. So I don't think it's impossible at all. I just think that you just gotta. I think there's a lot of opportunities in other worlds too. Again, if you don't have to just do it for animation, you can do it. The gaming industry opened up a whole new batch of design which didn't exist before.
Right.
That people didn't even know about.
Right. So if you're speaking to, because I know you teach and now you have your pay. Well, when I first interviewed you for the magazine, you were actually trying to do a brick and mortar school.
Yeah. So I did. So I did have I had the brick and mortar school. And I actually started in my garage. It's a garage story or a garage story. It started in my garage where I was just taking 4 people. I converted my garage into a workspace. I was just taking 4 people at a time. And then about a year later, then I stopped. And then it was maybe about a year later, maybe a year and a half, I just had the ambition to where I just want to start have my own physical art space, my own school. So then I found a place near Burbank. It was a 4,000 square foot place. And I named it the Silver Drawing Academy. That's when that got it like its official name. And I was just teaching classes there, had other teachers coming in. It was a big warehouse. It was just a warehouse. And I converted it. And it was awesome. And I did that for 2 years. And then my landlord wanted to raise my rent and also wouldn't put in heating or air. And since it was in this big place, it was like going to be $20,000. I'm not spending $20,000 to fix your building. Yeah. So I had to leave that space. And then I was looking for another space. And then it just didn't work out. And then my wife said, hey, why don't you just do it again? Let's really just step up your space downstairs. You love teaching. Just let's do it again down here. You don't have to take that many people. And I said, just take 5 people at a time. So I started just taking 5 people at a time. And I was having people from all over the world come. It was crazy. I had people from like Italy and Brazil and just people come, and they would come to my house. Some of them I'd pick up from the train station and bring them back to my house. And it was like really cool. It was a great experience. And then I just felt like, I'm just getting so busy and I just can't do this right now. I'm just trying to figure out what it is that I really wanted to do. And then the pandemic came, and then it became this thing that I kept pushing aside for so long, my real intuition. And I wasn't trusting my gut. And my gut for the last few years was telling me, you got to go online. You got to go online. You got to do this online. I was teaching for schoolism for the last 10 years, 15 years, a long time. And I was doing that, but I knew intuitively, I got these things I want to do my own way. And I was always putting it aside, making excuses. Then the pandemic came, all my workshops, I was traveling around the world doing workshops. I was creating workshops locally. I was doing just the conventions. I was doing all that, and all came to a standstill. And then that's when my wife and I were just like, now's the time. That this is it, either put up or shut up. It's like, okay, I think it's time to go online. So I just started researching all that and went on to the silverdrawingacademy.com. And that's where I just started to say, I'm going to build this website and start teaching and put together all my knowledge and make it accessible. So that's where I am now, is at my my Silver Drawing Academy.
Now when you have people, I guess people apply, and then you vet your.
No,
take anybody.
It used to be that where I would do that when I had the people coming to my place. But now my online academy is for all levels of art. So no matter if you're just starting out or you're a professional, it's that place for you where you access. I have over 400 video lessons. They're all short bite videos there. Plus I do six live Zoom sessions a month. So we all get together with the members of the community. There's a community forum attached to it where other artists and students are encouraging each other. So it's a real interactive sort of website. And I'm just fully in there every day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Now, in the meantime, you're doing all this. You're also still working as a working professional, right?
Yeah.
And then you, like everybody else, started out on paper. Then you had to go through the whole digital thing, right? So, do you want to talk a little bit about that, and maybe a little bit about like how your process of learning maybe changed because of that?
Yeah, I think I'm so grateful for having not had the Cintiq and all this other stuff, right? I'm grateful that I was able to, how did I find my art? I walk into a bookstore, the magazine section, and you flip through and you discover these artists, and you see that they're all doing everything hand drawn and hand done. Our heroes go back from, Norman Rockwell was my first guy that I discovered, but then you get into all the other just great illustrators and artists and discovering them and going, man, I got to try to draw too. And having had that experience that I think unfortunately a lot of people are missing now. They're just straight to the digital, and there was just something about that connection and just having to erase and really figure things out and be more decisive about decisions you're going to make. If I'm going to put this watercolor down, I really got to think about what I'm doing here, or this ink line, and I really got to think. So it was a different sort of training that went into what happens today, where you just hit undo, and so and I think going into the digital started for me at Nickelodeon, where they started to say we're replacing all the no more hand drawing. We're going to be moving everything digital. So you got to start doing everything digital. And that's where the Cintiq came in. And I just fell in love with it. And I really love it. But I mix still today between the both. I have my regular sketchbooks that I'm just sitting drawing. I have my iPad, which I'm using a program called Fresco by Adobe Photoshop. I really love that program. And then I just have the paper, that, and then like my Cintiq that I use, where I'm using mainly Sketchbook is the program. Autodesk Sketchbook is the program that I like using, and Photoshop. Yeah.
So, Stephen, one thing that I see in a lot of digital artists, and if I'm sure we've all watched our fair share of online drawing videos, or people at the desk or over the shoulder shot, is when people work digitally, I think there's a weird, there's kind of like a pseudo mastery of a line. Like people start to really get anxious about making the perfect circle. So you can just watch somebody work. It's like loop, undo, loop,
right.
Undo,
right,
loop, undo. Rather, if you were on paper, you would have just banged that out.
Yeah.
Maybe once.
Right.
So there's kind of like almost like not as much as a conservation of time digitally, because you've created a new thing in your head that you need to be perfect because it's digital. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think it's so true that I think there's almost like, it's almost like, you say you learn through repetition, right? If I do some over and over again, I'll learn through that repetition. But sometimes if you're conscious in your mind before you take that action, and let that process just really stir in your mind before you commit, I think is just as equally effective, right? Than just all of a sudden go into that undo mentality, because you don't have to still think. All of a sudden you've eliminated the process of sometimes really concentrating and making sure you're making the right decision. It almost becomes too easy. And now all those programs have those tools where it makes the circle for you. You don't even have to have a good hand or a cleanup line. You put it on 2, 3, 4, pressure sensitive, whatever it is, and you just make that line and it snaps it to a nice, perfect line. And you're like, whoa, that was easy. I wish I had that back in the day, to be honest. when I was having to clean up the Kim Possible and Clerks and all that stuff. I'm like, man, that would have been a real big time saver, having to do every hand ink line, on these things. But I got so much better at my line, right? Where that's where my line developed from, was from all that sort of stuff, having to do things over and over, and process of elimination. People say, how do you simplify your stuff so much? Because when I was having to draw all the time, and I would draw more realistic things, you know, like in a classically trained sense and doing portraits and things. But when I was trying to eliminate, I was just trying to eliminate line. I didn't want to have to draw so many lines. So, you know, I was always influenced by Hirschfeld. And I'm just like, that guy's got it down pat. You know, that's what it's all about right there. So at first, when I copy Drucker and I do all the little hatchings and the cross hatching and all that, and I'm like, I don't need that anymore. And Hirschfeld, he doesn't use all those lines. And that's the way to go. And then I would practice just trying to make a real quick, swippy line, right? And then years later, I found out that that's not how Hirschfeld even cleaned up his line. He just chicken scratch. He was just like, But through me going through that process of thinking that's how he did it, I bettered myself and my line just when I was doing cleanup, because I thought that's how he did it.
Well, you're also, when you work that way, you're doing a lot of things with that line. You're doing contour, but you're also doing form, things wrapping around, you know, something having weight. Where if you do the thing in the program and it goes bloop, you're actually not developing that sense in your head of where you want that weight to be in the drawing. So
true. Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
But I mean it's here. So I always try to get the student to you have to. I mean, when you come out of college and you spent $250,000 to go to art school for 4 years, right? Yeah. And you want to come out, you have to know those digital tools, because everybody goes, you need to know, you know, this litany of tools. Yeah. But the people who know that use the tools the best have that understanding of what the tool does. Yeah. Because the tool is dumb.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The tool is dumb. You're the one that's making all these particular choices. But I'm also very interested in your beginning, because since you, like me, didn't go to art school and you were like Jamar, you're self-trained, you must have had and this I think is very important for people to develop that ability to self-train, because even when you go to school, you still have to self-train, because the teacher can do a demo and then see ya. You know. Did you have a routine, a way of like breaking down things? So no, you would do like you would show a process of drawing from observation to inform drawing from invention.
Yeah.
So you must have had, and you're sort of doing both when you're doing caricature, right? Because you're trying to see the essence of something and then
push it. Yeah. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that just going through the process for me, I just lost my train of thought there with your question.
Well, did you have sketchbooks? Did you work on different things at different stages? Like, did you have like Monday, I'm going to do this, Tuesday, I'm going to do that?
Yeah. You know, I became very obsessed. Once I started doing figure drawing, and that was at about the age of, I did figure drawing in like a semester of community college before I dropped out. And that sort of gave me a little taste. And it wasn't even an art school, right? There was just a community college that had an art class. So it's like, it gave me a taste, and I go, wow, there's something there. But it wasn't maybe about till 2 years later where I started taking figure drawing classes. I found this atelier out in hold
on. Yo, welcome to the pandemic.
It's live. The pandemic is live.
The pandemic is live.
Zombies out there. No, but I started taking life drawing seriously, and it was at that point when I was started that routine. So that'd be like every Tuesday or Thursday, I'd go to life drawing. But then I was always going to the cafes with my friends. I'd always say, "Hey, hey, you guys, what are you doing? We'd always push each other to go coffee sketching. And you feeling like drawing? No, come on, man, let's go grab some coffee." And so it became a routine, and I was just drawing every single day because I knew when, again, when I dropped out of school at 18 of the university, of the college, and I told my parents, Mom, Dad, I'm dropping out. This is BS. My dog can open doors, and he's just opened the door again and it's coming out. I'm telling you, it's just, and they said, listen, if you feel you can make it as an artist, then you got to move out of the house, and you think that you could do it. And they did it lovingly, right? It's not, but they didn't, they just said, all we're going to pay for is your health insurance because you're on our plan, and your car insurance because we know that you won't if we don't, but you think you can make it, go fend for yourself type of thing. And that's what I did. And I knew at that age, no one's going to judge me on my schooling. No one's going to look at my portfolio, thing, my diploma, right, and say, oh, you went to that school. An art director is always going to be judging me on my ability and my art. They're going to flip through that black book, that back in the time where you had those source directories that went to agencies and the publishers, and, they're flipping through there and is this person good or not good? And so I knew I got to develop my skill. There's no messing around, and that's what led me to I was obsessed, and it was an obsession, I could say, because it was every single day, all the time. And it reminds me of this thing that John Bon Jovi said when he was 18. He was around the same age, 18 years old. He had his guitar teacher. And his guitar teacher said to him, hey, John, you got to ask you something. Are you in this for play, or are you in this for keeps with what you're doing? You're coming to me every day. You want to play? You want to play, goof around, impress the girls, go to the beach, do the stuff. Okay, cool. We can keep going the way you're going. Otherwise, if you're in it for keeps, you kind of know what needs to be done. And he said at that moment for him, that's when a trigger switched. And he knew that I'm not going to be partying. I'm not going to be doing these other things. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to be practicing with my band. I'm going to be doing all these things, which led to that. And I felt I could relate to that because that's kind of like what happened to me. I just became obsessed with studying. I knew people were better than me, and I knew that I gotta just keep working at it. Oh man, my stuff sucks. I stopped showing my artwork to my parents when I was 18 because they kept telling me how great it was. Oh, you're so wonderful and you're amazing. My circle of friends, everyone, you're so good. I'm like, nah, this stuff fucking sucks, man. It's horrible. I knew it within, and that's where the obsession kind of happened at that age.
Well, let me ask you another thing too now, because you lived in California, which is sort of an art factory state. Like Los Angeles is like a big art machine between the colleges and the studios. The colleges produce workers to go work with the proper skills to go work in the studios. Yeah. So if you grow up and you're in that area, did you feel any way about that, or were you worried about that? If you're going to go apply to a job, there could be some person who went to Cal Arts applying to that. Did you feel like you were at a disadvantage because of that? Because again, right now I see there's a lot of students who feel like I've got to go to these certain schools,
right?
And if I don't go to that certain school, I'm not going to be successful, right? Yeah. What the thing is that still most of the people who go to those schools are not always. It's still that a slightly higher percentage, maybe, who go to Art Center, right? Because they're very picky about who they let in, or Sheridan or Art Center. But not everybody can afford $300,000 to go to art school for 4 years. So then what do? Do you go, well, okay, I can't have my job because...
No, it's because your portfolio will always be your diploma. Your portfolio, anything that's represented in there is always going to be the selling factor. Again, people are going to go up against those people who graduated, but it doesn't matter. It's always going to be the right artist for the right time. They're going to look through your portfolio. If you want to be a character designer and they go, wow, your stuff's very versatile and you got a lot of good ideas and different things, this is good. This is what we need for this new show. Otherwise, they could get a portfolio where that person went to Cal Arts or something or another school and all their stuff looks like Pixar animation. They go, we don't need that. We already got that. We need someone with something else, it's a little bit more distinctive, something. Again, every show is going to be different. So I always encourage my students, hey, the more versatile you are, the better off you're going to be. And when I came into this industry, I honestly came into it just unknowing. I was naive. And I think that being naive goes a long way, because you get into the studio and I wasn't thinking about competition. I wasn't thinking about the other portfolios. I didn't know. I didn't even know what a character designer was. You know, when I just submit a portfolio. Okay, I'll submit a portfolio. What goes in a portfolio? The only thing that I did do that was distinctive, again, I was always thinking outside the box. I wish I had it here. My very first portfolio, I didn't buy because I didn't want to pay $30 for a black portfolio. So I just bought some wood, and I just there was like plyboard, very thin, you know. And then I just put some rings in it, and I engraved in it with an engraving knife with like a little kid's drawing. And I wrote Steven Silver's sketchbook, age 24, however old I was at the time. And that was my portfolio. And then I put my artwork photocopies inside it. And that actually, when they used to push the carts on dollies, go into the director's offices. All the portfolios would be stacked on top of each other for the director to pick the artist they wanted. Okay, let me look at the layout artists. Let me look at the prop designers. Let me look at the character designers. Flip through, and mine was like this weird looking thing. And my director told me, he said, it was distinctive, and it was at the bottom of the pile. And he said, I pulled it out, and I just thought, because you did something like that, maybe there's something more to this guy, you know. And then they give you a test. But I think you gotta. I think it's very healthy to block out a lot of shit. You know, I don't know if you can cuss on this show.
Oh yeah, you can
All
work.
right. But you know, you got to block out. You know, to block out a lot of shit, right? So that your head, it becomes empty, to where it allows all the new stuff to come in. Because I think a lot of people have so much stuff filled in their head of all these different nagging things and this and that, and it's just like just don't. Oh, he got out. I'm sorry.
I don't want to blow anybody's ears out. That's hilarious. Steven will be right back. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. It's good to see everybody back. I miss you all. We are slated to be back on every Wednesday at 8 p.m. EST. We've got a lot of great guests in the hopper coming up. Very excited. I have a couple of questions in here for Steven, but not enough. So let's see some more questions. Hey, Steven, you know what I was thinking? And this is a little abstract. I don't know if you've ever watched any of these newfangled audition shows. Like, that's a lot of young people feel like that's their new way of getting famous, is you have to win a competition,
right,
or be on TV or something. But I used to really be interested in those American Idol things in the first couple of weeks, because the first couple of weeks is where they have the cattle shoot, and there's thousands of people.
Yeah.
And there's people who clearly have no talent. They're just there to be on television.
Right.
Right. And they give them airtime because, you know, the camera will train on the girl dressed in a unicorn onesie.
Yeah.
With a ukulele. And
right.
like, you know, you're not going to get on the show, right? But she's a spectacle. So I was thinking about people who admire people like yourselves, or people who have gotten so high in the business, and kind of they're trying to figure out this algorithm almost, right? It's like, okay, well, I see Silver's running stuff. All I need to do was wear this onesie and just get in the door, and maybe they'll give me a job. But they're still missing these pieces, right? Because your story sounds like, just to say it right, like right on the surface, you're like, I didn't go to school. I did a lot of character. I was a caricature artist, and I did a lot of, you know, caricatures of people. And then here I am running the studio. You know what I mean? So I could see that being frustrating to somebody who's like, well, how did, you know, if Silver could do it, I could do it. But but the motivation is there, the study is there, a very interesting kind of like, I don't know, it's chemistry almost.
Yeah.
You know, so I wonder how you look back on your career and look at kind of like the people around you who just didn't finish the race, who were trying to be like you, or maybe hung out with you and just didn't have the same energy you did.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of like what it almost is. I think that's what's so hard is that when you do all these shows have made people, I think, believe that it's this easy.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's where it went horribly wrong, because again, we never had that. Or now everyone's a winner, right? So you open up your box of Cracker Jacks, or you open up your box of, whatever it is, and you're finding, oh, I got everything. There's no more that searching. Everyone's given the trophy. It's even with my kids when they were playing. I remember when it first started happening when they were younger, I was kind of like, well, why are they getting a trophy? They didn't even win, And I was just, but that's the sort of mentality I think that it sort of like happens now all the time. Is just that people are just, it's almost like becomes it should be easier, and you don't, no matter how you look at it, you're always going to have to work. There's just no shortcuts. There's just no shortcuts, and and it's hard to sometimes get that across to people.
Yeah.
Because they look at you and they look at your success and they look at you do stuff, and to them it's like a magic thing. So they think like, oh, at a certain point it'll just be like, I would like to have some more. I'll just pour out some more.
Yeah.
Because even you have to deal with the fact that even though you've been incredibly successful, a good businessman, you're doing all these things, you're having to do that because the studio's not going to do that for you.
Exactly.
And then they could say, well, we don't like Kim Possible style anymore. What happens then? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the reality of it. And it's the constant, for me, wanting to switch, again, not wanting to rely on anyone and be a chameleon. I think that's a very important thing, to not just have just one focus. Try not to put all your eggs in one basket. Try not just to say that I just want to be a Pixar artist or something, and that's it. And if it doesn't work out, then my life never turned out to be. It's just like, listen, there's other areas that, again, maybe you might want to get into the comics, maybe children's book illustration. There's a lot of different areas, but know yourself a bit. What do you enjoy?
Well, I think it's important that you're saying that, because I know, and I watch, like you do, I watch a lot of the, videos and podcasts and everything. And you have some people will say, well, no, your portfolio should always just be this one thing.
Right.
If you have diversity, it's confusing. It's confusing to have, but I always think it's the opposite, because I think you never know where you're going to plug in when you start out. You never know what your opportunity is going to be. And if they go, well, we're only doing trees that look a certain way, and well, I drew trees this other way.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have like the Hanna-Barbera style, like the 50s. You have like the 50s style, right?
Yeah.
The Disney style, the 50s style. And then everything in the 80s and the 90s was sort of an amalgam of bits of those different styles. Yeah. Now you have the anime style, plus, like, I guess I call like the American Dad style, which is like not a style. It's like a dumb style. Like anybody can draw it. It doesn't take a lot of drawing power to be able to do it, because it's like a writer-driven show. It's not a art-driven, like Gendy's stuff is like an art-driven.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I always think like you should have, if you're going to do backgrounds, you should have like stuff that looks like it could go on the Simpsons, something that might look like it could go in a 50s sort of a style, and maybe something would go into maybe a more realistic style, just to show a potential employer, I've got range. Because if you go, I can just do this one thing, they're like, well, we're not looking for that.
Exactly. And that's usually what it ends up being. If you're just so focused on the one style, one thing that people started doing, and I advised against it in animation, I don't know where it came from, but where they're doing a themed portfolio, right, for their animation portfolio, but they're just doing the one style. So they're showing the visual development, the props, the characters, just to show that they can do everything. But that's all that's in their portfolio. So now you've just showed me you can just do one style. That's not going to fly in animation. Again, you're like you said, I mean, 1 minute you're working on SpongeBob, the next minute you're working on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So be versatile. In the illustration world, I would say, you get a guy like CF Payne or something, right? Or say back at Rockwell in the day, you have to be consistent, to the art director knows that they're getting the same person in the magazine each time. I think in that area of publishing, you kind of want to be more consistent, with that. But I would say you could have your website portfolio now, and you can say your publishing designs, your animation designs. You can create so many different umbrellas to who you are now, and it's probably more advisable.
So did you do that? Did you do that as you went through? Like in the beginning, you didn't have an online portfolio. Now you have a track record and you have an online portfolio. Yeah. So do you suggest that the younger artists do that? Compartmentalize that. Say like, because like Art Center does a thing where you do the whole. You develop your story and your pitch board and your color script and they go through the whole, like you're making your 101 Dalmatians or Frozen or whatever, right? And that seems to be what they're training everybody to do, so they can just kind of plug right in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, it's gonna be different because they're not necessarily gonna do that. I would advise people to say maybe you like doing storyboards, so you have your storyboard section. Maybe you like doing character design, have a character design section. Maybe you got props, but separate them. I always advise people, think about it like a menu, because a lot of people, could you imagine walking into like a restaurant and knowing that your seafood is mixed with your desserts and with the meat and the salads, and you're looking at this big long list and like, what am I even looking at? You want to go in and I want to have my hors d'oeuvres and I want to have my main course and I want to have my dessert, and just do that with your portfolio. Just separate it. You don't have to, if your strength is one thing, let it be one thing. I would advise someone not to put a bunch of stuff in there, just what you love doing the most, because what if you hate doing backgrounds and you've done it because you're kind of good at it and you did it and you just put it in, and all of a sudden you get a job doing backgrounds every day. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be cursing up a storm every day. Like, man, why did I take that job off day? It's going to settle in, 2 months later. You're like, damn it. Fuck, why'd I do this? And that's where I learned that lesson early on. I knew I just wanted to do character design. So that's all I ever put in my portfolio was character design. No props, no backgrounds, nothing. So with me, I'm just saying I'm the character design expert here. That's what my lane, so it's like they always say, pick a lane, right? Find your lane. What do you do? And stick with that. Stop trying to be everyone else or do what other people are. Just do what you love doing. Okay, I love doing character design. Let me just focus on that. And because of that, I just kept getting jobs for character design. So people say you don't have to draw backgrounds or anything. No one ever asked me to. It's not in my portfolio. You don't have to draw the prop. No, it's not in my portfolio.
Right. That's what they say at the Kmart. That's not my department.
Right. Exactly.
Stephen, I have some questions from the room.
Yeah.
So, and how you feeling? You all right? You good?
Great. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. You don't have to pee in a bucket or anything. You good?
Yeah.
All right, good.
That's the second story here.
All right, so our good buddy Tito James, hey Tito, asks, what are your favorite and least favorite current character design trends? Since we were speaking on that subject.
Right. So let's thanks Tito for the question. So my favorite designs, I think, have always been just the old school, just when it gets into more illustrative with, and it almost sounds cliche now when you talk about the milk call and you talk about that sort of look back in the day, 101 Dalmatians, Beauty, and just, and all those Sword in the Stone and just everything else. There's just something that always drew me to when I see animation or characters that are developed like that. It always tickles my fancy. I'm always curious. And I think my least favorite really get into a lot of just the primetime animation show, or just everything's just with the noodle arm, or it's just there's no sense of design to it. It's just, when I look at Family Guy, I mean, again, it's a great show. My kids really love it. And, but I'm just like, the style just doesn't do it for me. I want to, I don't know. I want feeling in the designs, and it's just my own personal, thing. And they just feel so dead all the time. And I don't like that sort of stuff.
It seems like we kind of come up against this wall a lot. I think there could be people that feel that us old guys are fuddy-duddies. Yeah. Like, you guys don't like any of the new stuff. Like, you don't like Rick and Morty. You don't like Family Guy. You don't like She-Ra.
Right.
So, like, what's missing in the sauce there for you, Stephen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just sometimes I just want, maybe if a style has unity and I really feel like just things are cohesive and it's just feels like it blends together, it can feel good. But I think just there's some of the shows, the stuff, when it's missing that unity, it's missing, like the characters feel detached. They don't feel like they belong in the same universe sometimes. Even I can look at a Family Guy and some of the characters just don't feel like they belong, in together in the universe, or it's just deadpan, and just that there's, I don't know, there's design elements where I'm just a sucker for variation in design, and I hate seeing things that are just, and I call it the ladder, where things just feel like a ladder, right? We just got the same wrongs, just boom, 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 boom. There's no variation. There's no, and I think that's what it needs. And I don't mind this. Again, if it go as simple as you want, you can have the noodle arms. There's some great stuff out there, but I think just maybe have a little bit more oomph in the design area, for me, attracts me again. But that's where my eye goes, and that's just me, right? Someone else is like, right, I don't see it, and it looks good to me, right? So it's all subjective at the end of the day.
Well, it's also like what you liked when you're 12 too. Some of it is like, I can look back to, like, I can go back and look at Frankenstein Jr. I loved that as a kid.
Yeah,
the designs, the shows are crap. I mean, they're really awful. But there was a sense of design. I think a lot of the modern popular shows that come on later on, like Fox, they're writer-driven shows, so it's not about the art. It's about timing.
It is,
It's really the timing. It's not about, because the drawings aren't even that funny or that expressive.
Yeah.
The models are never drawn like Ren and Stimpy, where they would really, or Bob. There's no Bob Clampett in any of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that stuff is so fun, the squash and stretch. And I think that's what I love. And it really says it all, is the squash and stretch, when you did use the medium for what you can do with the medium. And I know just when you're watching these stiff primetime shows, and like you said, it is all about the writing and they can knock it out. But I'm just a sucker for squash and stretch. And I just kind of want to see that. I don't know. It feels more fun to draw. And I know a lot of the guys who draw in these shows, that board artists and stuff there, they don't love it. They're just like, oh God, man, they're just tracing, right? A lot of times they're told just to take the model sheet, and you're taking the model sheet and it's cut and paste, and you're just shifting. So they're not even animating. They're not even really telling, they're just like, just boom, 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 throwing it in there. And for them, I just kind of want it to be more fun for them. I know every time that if I'm been asked to design a show and a primetime show, I'm always trying to push the boundaries and say, maybe it could be different this time. You don't have to stick with that philosophy or that theory. You can change it. But I do remember I was developing a primetime animated show once a long time ago, and I was doing the drawings and the director and stuff. Guys go, no, it's too designed. It's too designed. I need you to think like if a 10-year-old could draw it. I'm like, well, then you need to hire a 10-year-old, I'm just, otherwise. But you know what my advice to him honestly was? I said, you might be better served hiring a storyboard artist to design the characters and not a character designer, because I'm thinking too much, my design hat's on too much for something, where a storyboard artist has a shorthand and can do the sort of stuff where maybe it's not going to be beautiful. It's not going to be completely designed, if they're not a designer, but it's going to have some substance to it. And I think that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. All right. We have another question from our good buddy, Phil Laura. And Phil was the first two-parter on Pencil to Pencil. I don't know if you guys know each other.
Yeah, I do. I know Philip.
Yeah. So Phil asks, what books for mental resilience do you recommend that helped you over the years? Any book?
Yeah. One of my favorite books that I read started me on a train of thought was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And it was and just don't get fooled by the title or anything. It's the philosophy of discipline. It's the philosophy of showing up. It's the philosophy of perseverance. It's the philosophy of doing all the things that of balancing your time. It's all these sort of mindsets that go, man, it's just really great stuff. And it led me on this whole journey. But one of the books that honestly changed my life was a book called by a guy named Eckhart Tolle. And it's called, he did two books. There was The Power of Now, and the other one was, oh my God, and I can't remember the name of it. That's just coming to my head. It's like Finding Your Life's Purpose. It's called Finding Your Life's Purpose. And I read that book, and some people, and like he says in the beginning chapters, he said, listen, people are going to read this book, and some people, they're not going to get it. It's just going to go in one ear out the other. They're not going to truly understand what I'm saying. But I read that book many years ago, and it just lit me on fire spiritually, and everything made sense. Like, it made me believe that I believe in reincarnation. And it made me truly believe that, wow, I am experiencing this. I am going along this journey for a true purpose now. And that's where I discovered my true purpose was teaching. And it moved into these areas, which led me on this sort of spiritual journey, which I'm still always on and pay attention to all the time. And I think that was a very helpful source. So that book, and then it led me to another great book where I do a lot of reading, and I have a lot of different books that come and go, different teachers, right? I was obsessed with, I love Oprah Winfrey's Network when she had it. She had so many great teachers on there, and I found other teachers through that, and it led me on this other journey. And it was just through this where I read these books, and a word kept popping up. And even in the Bible, there'd be just like, surrender. This word surrender would come up often. All these books, surrender. And I knew that all these books, all they're trying to do is get you to kind of figure yourself out. They all have the same message. Every time, the same message. No matter what book I read, it's always the same core message. But the one word that I discovered that kept showing up was the word surrender. And that's when it dawned on me, my God, that's what it's all about, is surrendering. And I would write every day on my drawing finger the word surrender. Because when I'm writing, and it didn't mean give up. What it means is just know that life is, the wind is going to blow where the wind is going to blow, right? It's just like we're spinning the third rock from the sun 1,000 miles an hour on an axis. We travel through space 800 miles a second. All this stuff is just wow, just surrender and just know that the stuff that's going to show up on certain days is going to show up, and it's out of your control or it is in your control. That I get to determine oftentimes the cause and effect on things. And that really became this awakening of just surrender, just stop trying to resist it, stop trying to react to it, stop trying to fight it. It's like, my computer crashed. Surrender to this. It's like, what are you going to do? And what Eckhart told me in his books was there were three things, and I use the analogy CAR, C-A-R. There's only three things you can do in any situation, and it's really a Buddhist philosophy. And what it is, you can either change the situation, accept the situation, or remove yourself from the situation. So whatever comes up, these are your three options. And so you go, okay, I get a flat tire, can I change the situation? Well, no, I got a flat tire. Can I accept the situation? Well, I need to, because I've got a flat tire. I can scream and yell all about it. Can I remove myself from the situation? No, I can't do that. Where the change comes in is, I'm going to call up, I either change it myself, change the tire myself. Otherwise I call up AAA and have them change it. Right. So in any of these situations that arise, again, when my computer crashed, and it's happened several times, and I go through that CAR, can I change this? Acceptance comes first. Okay. My computer is just crashed, surrendering to this. Okay. It's just gone bad. Okay. Can I remove myself from this? No, I'm not. Am I just going to abandon ship and leave all my files and forget my job? No, what can I do to change the situation? So it's always about change. Yeah. And then you realize that everything in life is about change. The flowers change, the birds change, the butterfly changes, we are changing. Our body is changing constantly. Our blood is changing constantly. Everything is changed. So it's the surrender. And that led me to this book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, I think his name is. And that was another enlightening thing that was just like, wow, this guy's now in his late 70s, and in his early 20s, he chose to surrender to life. Not giving up. He ended up becoming a multimillionaire, but then lost everything. But it was all through him surrendering. Like, I don't know. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to allow this to happen. I'm going to stop resisting. Like, that person wants me to go there. Why am I? You know what? Let me try. The same reason I started my school. Let me try. Let me try. Let me try. It was always surrendering to everything. I want to start my own book, publish my own book. Never published my own book before. Let me try. I wanted to make my own app. Never made an app before. Let me try. Let me see what happens. And so I've always been in that place of surrender, where that's what I want to teach people more than anything. Again, I always want to encourage people, keep reading, keep learning. But I want to teach them more than anything that when you allow yourself that word surrender to sort of really come into you, your days get easier and things don't seem as grim, things don't seem as dark, things don't seem as bad, because you know that everything you're doing is day by day. And then I came to this realization that, and it was weird, that we really, every day is a new day, a new rebirth. Every day you die. So if you sleep maybe 7 hours or whatever, 8 hours, maybe you got 17 hours in a day. So those are your 17 hours. And at the end of the day, your day dies, because tomorrow is a new thing around the sun, right? And now here we are, a brand new day. You get to decide this day. What do I want to do? What do I want to make of this day? And, was it better than yesterday? Yeah, it was a little bit better. And I think for me, having a schedule, I'm very diligent on keeping a calendar. So I don't keep anything on my phone. I have my little Norman Rockwell calendar. Just keep all my day-to-day stuff in line of what I want to do. And at the end of the day, I kind of die. And tomorrow's a new rebirth. And I look at it that way. And then you trip out on things sometimes. I heard someone say, it was amazing. It was very powerful. And it really affected me. And he was talking to this guy, and he said, "This guy, what's your concern?" "I'm concerned that my dad's 77 years old, and I'm afraid he doesn't have that much longer on this planet. Maybe he'll live to 85, maybe 7 more years. How often do you see your dad?" About maybe once a year. "How does it make you feel that you might just see your dad 7 more times before he dies, before he leaves this planet?" And they start talking about how many summers do you have left on, it takes one full year, to wrap around the sun to get one summer. How many more summers do you have left on this planet? You go, "Oh shit, man, I'm in my 50s and stuff. I got maybe about 20 more summers left. Oh shit, what am I going to do with those 20 summers?" Knowing that everything's changing, that everything's going to change. So why don't you just surrender to it and just know, yep, this just changed. Oh shit, pandemic, damn, wasn't expecting that. That just changed. This just changed. Oh shit, that just right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great answer.
Were you more anxious when you were younger? Were you more of an anxious person when you were younger?
I think I was always nervous about. I was always nervous about how I could make it as an artist, and will this work out? I'm taking this risk. So in the back of my mind, which was part of the drive, right, just to propel me forward, was, what if it doesn't work out? And then I went backpacking around the world with my older brother for like 8 months, with one backpack. It cost us we saved our money. We spent like $2,000 for 8 months of living, and went around the world. And that's when I realized that when I was living with these different cultures, I was like in Nepal, and I was in India, and I was staying with these different families, and I was sleeping on park benches and rooftops, and I was doing stuff. And I came to the realization that no matter what happens in this life, if I don't make it as an artist, and if I don't make enough money, I know that I have enough friends and enough family surrounding me that if I needed help, they would be there to help me, lend a hand. So I won't have to be a starving artist. And then I could try to figure it out. And if I got to get a regular job doing something, so be it. But I learned that from there, seeing these people who most of them didn't even have a pot to piss in. And they were so content. Mm-hmm. And how is it? How are you so happy with nothing? Coming from this, Western civilization, right? Where we're always in that sort of feel that we don't have enough. We didn't get that award. It's not enough. We didn't get that show. It's not enough. We don't have this or 2 cars. It's not enough. Whatever it is, it's always this feeling of wanting instead of appreciating. And I think through that experience made me realize that it's okay to want things. But it's also, you got to just make sure that you're just kind of grounded a bit and just know the reality. And I think that sort of helped me get through and change my mindset to where gave me that drive. Okay, I'm going to do it, because if I fail, I know my parents won't turn me away. I know my twin brother won't turn me away. I know my other 2 brothers won't turn me away. I know my friends won't turn me away. You know, I got some good core friends that they're not going to turn me away, that there'll be a couch to sleep on. And that's what I always thought.
Yeah, I'm going right to Manley's after this. Stephen, our good buddy Paul Pate says, and I want to talk about this for a second. Do you realize how energetic you are?
Yes, I do. I listen. This is why I know this is my calling. This is why I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because it requires no effort. And it's just, and it comes out of me. And I know when I'm talking my language to people, that it's there. I know when I'm in a group of people that I don't know, non-artists, say I'm with my wife and we go to a party and other friends, I'm very antisocial. A bit like I can have a conversation, but I am a little bit more reserved to people, because sometimes I'm very inquisitive, and I like meeting people and talking with people that you can talk to about real life stuff and not just the shallow stuff, right? Not just the basic, how's the weather, it just becomes like, man, what was the worst thing you experienced when you were blah, blah, whatever it may be, and getting right to the heart of it. It's like, do you think about death? I think about death. Do you? Whoa, dude, easy. But some people are freaking out, with that. They don't know how to respond or to talk. And I find myself that it's just, this is when I realized this is what I'm supposed to be. And I knew my purpose. And it's even crazier. My craziest story of all time is why I'm even doing this. When I was 6 years old, I was looking out my bedroom window, and on the ground, I saw something on the grass, and I went downstairs and picked it up, and it was an artist's original sketchbook filled with portraits and landscapes and everything, and I carried it with me everywhere I went, and I was sketching from it. And it was almost, this is why the reincarnation thing always trips me out. It's just like, because sometimes, this is going to sound strange too, I believe I've been put in every position I was supposed to be put in order to get to a position where I can move people forward, where I can help motivate people and help give them a sense of purpose. That everything I went through was for this reason, to just ignite something in people. And because when I found that sketchbook and going through the stuff I've gone through, and getting Kim Possible, okay, thousands of designers out there, right? Could have been anyone. I got picked, and then happened to develop that sort of show style that became something at that time. And it's like, and that led to giving me a platform, and my platform was so that I could publish books. But now what did I do with that? I was able to teach other people how to publish books. So once I learned how to do that, I showed other people how to do it. Once I learned how to do the character design, I started showing other people how to do the character design. And I felt that that's just kind of been my path. It's like everything I do was for this purpose of just trying to give other people the tools to now do it and show it. And maybe that's my purpose, whatever, like an apple tree or a grape or a pear tree, whatever it is, has its purpose, to do that. And I found that mine was teaching. So I'm going to stick with it. And I used to resist it. I really did. I used to go, I'm supposed to work in the industry, and I'm supposed to be working at a feature studio all the time, and I'm supposed to be doing this because that's what I'm supposed to be doing, but realize that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. That wasn't my calling. So I don't spend my time chasing gigs and jobs and that. I spend my time, how can I teach? How can I impact people's lives somewhere? And that's what it is. And it was all goes back to that sketchbook I found when I was 6 years old. I discovered a few years ago why I found that sketchbook. It was for this purpose. And because again, these opportunities for me to even come onto your guys' show and talk this, had I been a character designer on just a no-name show that never went anywhere and people weren't familiar, again, it's just like, but all of a sudden these opportunities gives you this platform and this voice to where now I know that I could help someone on your, in your world. Mm-hmm. In the comics world or something. And again, I can't explain it other than I, again, believe that. Did you guys see that movie Soul by Pixar?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it was such an amazing movie, but I really related to it. And that's what I feel. I feel like you have this purpose to just try to find what it is. And while you're here, that's why experiment with everything, explore with everything, try this, try that, and don't be afraid of the end result. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from all of this is just don't be afraid of the end result, and to me, I like to say, as long as the wind's flowing and blowing, okay, it's we're living, right? I'm above the earth. I'm above the ground, right?
I love it, man. Go ahead, Mike. I was going
to say, did you have art books that you feel filled that same philosophy? You touched on that, art books?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the greatest finds that I did find was the artist course, right, which was put out by Norman Rockwell and Robert Fawcett and Albert Dorn and all these guys. So that was just a real amazing book. But How to Draw the Marvel Way was an amazing, but there it is. That's what I used to just kind of just write on my finger every day. And just then there was that. There was, and I did a lot of copying. Right. So I did a lot of copying of artists, did a lot of copying of Mad Magazine, of Mort Drucker and Jack Davis, just to try to find out who they are, what's the essence behind them. So that was a really good book. And I think that's what taught me and why, again, academically, I really struggle. So to have a book that had a lot of words was hard for me. So it was always easy just to copy other people's artwork and learn from that. And it's the reason when I put together The Silver Way, why it has very little text, to be honest with you, in it. It's more visual because that's how I learn. And that's what I want to just do. And there's my other saying. I got this saying, piece by piece will bring you peace. That just like stop trying to just make everything just this big puzzle. We know that if I just work, I'm going to work on this today for my tomorrow. When I was publishing my own book, I'm going to scan 1 page a day because I know after 200 days, I'm going to have 200 pages. And it was just, I don't have to look at oh my God, the overwhelming thing of this. This is so huge. Oh my God, this is going to take forever. So I'm not even going to start. Yeah. So then you don't even start because you've convinced yourself this is going to take forever,
I love it. Another thing, Stephen, I talk about a little bit. I have a kind of a sister podcast, my coffee break that I do on off days for Pencil to Pencil. And I talk a lot about just kind of leaning in. I talk about leaning in. It's kind of the same thing you're saying. What am I good at? I can run my mouth. I don't mind being on camera. I like to connect with people. I like to engage people. And that is easy to me. So I just lean into that. And, you are doing basically the same thing. Our whole interview is just you being yourself. We're just kicking it like the kids say. And your presence on Instagram is almost like you're the artistic version of Gary Vee or one of those guys.
Right.
Yeah. Who's you're just putting out this, you could call it content, but I think probably to you, it's not even work. Like you're sharing. Right?
Yeah. That's it. And that's the question. It's like how, it must take so much work. You work so hard. And I go, I really don't. Because every day I'm doing what I enjoy and it's just natural. And that's where I remember reading Steve Harvey put out a really good book. He's now the comedian, but he hosts Family Feud. Yeah. He wrote a really great book on just motivation. But what he talked about was just truly finding your gift, that everyone has a gift, it's not so much, the passion or trying to find what you love to do, but what is your gift? Like you say, like my gift is getting in front of camera. My gift is, writing. I can fix people's drawings, or my gift is organization. And people neglect those gifts. And when you find that gift that you just, again, know thyself, what is it about you that you know that this is what you really love? That's what I think we should be moving into. Everything else, we're going to meet the wall of resistance a lot of times. And I also feel you might be working towards something. I got to get that job. I got to be a Marvel, comic book artist or something. This is, my calling, my thing. But there's something else about you that's even stronger and a greater gift than that. And here you are chasing that. And it was just never meant to be. And you wonder 10 years later, why did I never make it as a Marvel comic? Because that was never truly your purpose, maybe. And I think it's coming to the realization sometimes of that. Not that you shouldn't pursue it.
No.
Not that you shouldn't try. But I think there gets a point where, again, it's trusting your gut, going with your instinct. And there was a great quote, and I can't remember it completely, but it said, like, allow yourself to silently move into the area which you truly are, with your true being or something, right? Your true gift. Allow yourself to silently be pulled in that. You don't have to force it. You just silently are going to see, man, I really love teaching. So, all of a sudden that opportunity came up for you to teach. Like, that's why I got to teach at Cal Arts. I was teaching at Cal Arts for a while. Wow, where'd that come from? Wow, because people saw that I was teaching. And then it led and that's what it is. It's once from one thing leads to the next. It's that constant snowball effect going down the hill.
Yeah.
And, right, it just keeps building and building. And I think that's what we got to trust. That's what we got to surrender to. That's what we got to allow ourselves just to naturally move into this flow of what we want to be, and definitely not what other people want us to be, right? The grandparents, the parents, don't be, oh man, I meet so many artists all the time. Their parents, you'll never make it as an artist. And they ruin their lives. I had a young kid who wrote me and said, my dad wants me to go to school and finish art school, but I got a job opportunity to work in an animation studio. Do you think I should take the job at the studio and quit school? And I said, hell yeah, do that. That's where you're going to get all your experience. Then if you want to go back to school, all of a sudden he writes me about a month later, says that his dad is extremely upset at me. He called the studio and made them fire him so that he now has to go back to school. And again, it's this sort of these old school way of thinking, right? It's just like, no, this is the way that I did it in my day. I went to school and you get an education and you get a degree and that's how you get a job. And it's not that way now. It's like we can create our own businesses like that now. We can publish our own companies, our own books. We can build our own brands. We can build our own following, our own YouTube, our own Instagram. We are the sole creator. And if we allow ourselves just to accept that and go that, you're right. And maybe you're learning and maybe you're not that good or you got an idea, but you could start a YouTube channel. What's stopping you? What's stopping you from creating your own children's book or your own comic book and just getting a table at Comic-Con or another con and just testing out the water and seeing if people react to your book, and you got to do it your way. You got to try it, and maybe through that you met someone and that person led you to meet that person. So it is, I love what Steve Jobs always said, was it's all about connecting the dots. Again, all these dots are all over the place, and it's our job in this life to connect these dots and try to find the right people, meet the right people, put yourself out there, stop complaining about situations, take the bull by the horns, pull up those bootstraps and make stuff happen. And it's up to us. Again, we get to decide. Every morning when we wake up, when we open our eyes and we see the sun, we get to say, you know what? Today I'm going to practice drawing hands because I suck at drawing hands. So you can do that if you want to do that, right?
I say a lot. We talk about. I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. It's one of my favorite books, and he talks about resistance. Resistance manifests itself in different ways, but really, all this comes down to is fear.
Yeah.
Right? Are you allowing yourself to be afraid?
Yeah.
To the point of stopping you in your own tracks, getting out of your own way. All those things are super important.
And fears in different categories. It's like Napoleon Hill in his book, he talks about like the 7 fears. There's like technically like 7 fears. Like there's the fear of loss, there's the fear of death, there's all these things he goes through. So it's not just a fear.
Yeah.
You can identify it and say what that fear is. But I think some of us have, again, maybe 5 out of those 7, when really, it's okay to fear death if you want, but maybe just 2 out of the 7. Like, what are those fears? And I think when you know what those fears are, then you go, all right, well, if my biggest fear was dying, well, then maybe I'm not going to go try to go bungee jumping off a hot air balloon tomorrow,
Right, yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to do something where I can break my neck. And, so you think about, okay, so I'm going to eliminate that choice. And I think that's what it is. Identify what is it you're even scared of. But you know what it is? A lot of the time, what I find most people don't even know what they want. They don't even know what they want. Like, what do you want? I mean, and think bigger. Well, I want to be a character designer and work at a television animation studio. Okay, good. A lot of people like, I just want to be an artist in the industry. That's not that. You haven't nailed it down. You haven't put it there. You haven't really defined it, or even what you want for your lifestyle. What do you want? What do you want? Where do you want to live? Where are you comfortable where you're living right now? Yeah, I'm comfortable living right now. Do you, so when you start to go, a lot of those things that I thought I wanted, I kind of have, was there, maybe you want more of a social thing. Like one of my things that I want to do, and I talk about with my wife, I want to find a group of people that are spiritually minded like me, that we can go to and meet with a group of people once a week and find these friends and do that. That's something I want. So I put it out there, and because I know that's what I want, I'm in tune to it. So I know that if something pops up or if I see something, it's not just going to zip by me. Right. So many things in life keep zipping by us because we haven't targeted that what it is that I actually want, what I'm actually working towards. And then when you identify that, that's a good thing, as well as what you don't want. Well, I don't want to work and have a boss. Okay, that's good to know. What do you want then? I want to be my own boss. Okay, that's good to know. Let's start moving in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Mike, were you going to say something?
I was going to say when you were younger and you get in, you sort of I think most people I know kind of go through that, especially when you work in a business like animation, which requires you to like produce good or bad, happy or sad. If you're in-house, you have that initial exuberance, and then you get to that point, usually about 10 years in, where you're not quite as happy every day, and you start to sort of question about where do you want to go? Because like your trajectory might change from when you're 20 to when you're 30, and from when you're 30 to when you're 50. And I don't think that is something that people talk about when they're in school, because you're just obsessed with your style and wanting to get in and get a job, and you're not even thinking about what my trajectory is, except for the people who think they're all going to get their own show, because everybody thinks right, everybody's going to get their own show. And you say, well, you only get your own show if you prove to the company that investing in you for your show would be worth their investment, right?
Yeah.
But did you have you seem like you're fired out of a cannon, and you're very focused. And I think that a lot of people have a hard time with the focus and being realistic about how much time it takes to get your skills. Some people have a little bit more flair in one area. Some people have another flair in another area. Self-care, as you're talking about, philosophy, as you're talking about, getting to understand yourself, as you're talking about. And I know that I've had, even recently with a friend of mine, I even had the conversation where you could think that you wanted to go from A to B, but you decide that B is not really what you want to do anymore. And that's completely cool. Yeah. And I know that a lot of our young artists, from the time you're a teenager to you're in your mid-20s, there's a lot of churn, because it's going from high school, going through college, trying to get a job, trying to achieve your dream. Maybe you really achieve your dream, or maybe your dream changes while you're trying to achieve your dream. And then that's what I call like part of the terrible 20s, where it's like it's a very rocky, a rocky thing for some people. I would say that I was not very talented or super talented. I think I was very focused and had a very narrow idea, specific idea, what I wanted to do, which is to work for Marvel Comics, right? And so all through my teens into my early 20s, when I did it, I knew exactly, I was like laser focused. Everything I'm doing is going right for that, right?
Right.
I know that I have students who, in the pursuit of doing this, start to find that they're not happy.
Yeah.
They're not as clear about it. And I think it's really hard to work in this business if you're not clear about what you want to do, because it takes effort, a lot of effort to do anything.
Yeah.
Any part of these jobs, it takes a lot to do comics, background design, character design. And the thing is that the first half of my career, nothing changed, really. We got fax machines.
Yeah.
The last 10 years of your career have seen more change than all the other part of your career, right?
Yeah.
Right. And not just technology, but then that technology also affects the quality of the job, how people interact with each other. This pandemic, there's a lot of kids getting hired, young kids coming out of school, they're getting hired. They're never in a studio. They're going to be working remotely. Yeah. And they may find that when they go into a studio, it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah. 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 Listen, you said the word many times, and it's change. And it's just that's what it is. It's always going to be change, and surrendering to the change, that your career path and trajectory will change, and it might change again. Everything constantly. I didn't think I was going to be working in animation. My whole career path was setting up concession stands, doing caricatures in other theme parks. That's where I was going. That's what I was prepared to do, was just do that. And all of a sudden I got hired at Warner Brothers and became a designer. And it's like, whoa, okay, let's see where this path takes me. And that's what it just constantly is. And then this pandemic, of course, changed things for a lot of people. Like, okay, now I'm going to move in this direction. But I think it's just being open to know that, have that number one laser focus for now. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. If you say you want to be a children's book author or a Marvel comic book artist today, work towards it. If it changes, just allow it to change. Just let it, stop resisting it. Stop fighting that. Again, there's nothing, solid. There's like, what is it? There was just where I always used to, I like hung up this one thing one time where it says, this life is a test. It is only a test. If this had been a real life, there surely would have been instructions on where to go and what to do, and that's what it is, so this life is just like, I don't know, man, I'm spinning right now 1,000 miles an hour on an axis. And I don't know something's going to change, somewhere along the road.
Stephen, we're going to start wrapping up. I don't know where the time, I say this every time. I don't know where the time is going. You've been a fantastic chat, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out with us. I have a couple of last questions. And speaking of change, our matron saint of the podcast, Mama Carla, chimes in and asks, Stephen, do you think you're more capable than others to deal with the industry changes?
I think that now it's going to be open to really everyone. What's changing in the industry is that you don't have to be in-house anymore, right? So that's just open up the doors. And do I think I'm capable to deal with the industry changes? Yeah, but I think a lot of other people not in my position will be too. And actually, it's going to open up more floodgates, and there's going to be more opportunities, because I've already seen a lot of people who have been hired that were working in other countries getting jobs, right, where they couldn't before because they had to be here. So I think that the door is really open things up in the way the industry is changing now. I think it's really in a way for the better, and there's so much streaming, and everyone needs content and they need it. Today people are binge watching, so they're done watching a full season straight away in 2 days. So now they got to do another season. So there's a lot more work coming down the pipeline because of the change.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all of this is so interesting. And it's weird to say that creatives may be really benefiting from the pandemic. It's hard to say that out loud.
Yeah.
But it's been the reverse for so long.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a weird blessing, right? It's like all these creators struggled for decades to just, make rent. And then all of a sudden, hey, Netflix is making an animation studio. Yeah. Hey, come on in here. We'll give you a book deal. Hey, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and
I think I just want to add, just sort of like what happened in this industry is, well, everything shut down, all the live action animation kept going, right? So people were working more than ever, and there were live action shows that they were going to do. I've been called on to do designs for a show that was going to be, now it's going to be animated. Originally, it was going to be live action. So now they need a character designer for the animated. So they would now to switch it to animation. So there was all the animation studios were just as busy as ever during this time. And again, all the commercials, you started to see more animated commercials because people couldn't deal with all the stuff. So in a weird way, again, it is like, this industry really did thrive during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. I would like to tie back in a little bit so that people could take away from this. If you had like 4 or 5 things you would say to a young character designer who's listening to this podcast that they could try doing every day, or they could try incorporating into their team to make their work better. I know, everybody's obsessed with style, right? Yeah. And everybody's obsessed with certain, but trends that you see, things that you did, ways of training. I mean, one of the things that's really different, and we always talk about it, is that any artist you mention now, you can just Google and you get
everything.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had to go buy old issues of Mad Magazine to find that one issue of Star Trek that Drucker did, right? Now you can just Google it and you can find the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. So is there a philosophy, a gym, like a gym routine you would recommend to young people who are interested in, or even not young,
Yeah, sure.
Under 4, want to be a character designer, and to also be honest about, like, are there 100 character designers in the business? Are there 50? Is it the same 5 guys?
Right.
The same names over and over again. Right. And so one of the things I always try to do with my students is not to shine them on about how competitive it is. And one of the reasons you keep seeing the same people is because they're good and they can provide the work, because some people might be good, but
Right. Yeah. Not deadlines and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like the gym. Through my academy, I have a thing called Art Gym. And what it is, it's a whole layout and program, but that's what it is. It's drawing every day. It's just decide that I'm going to learn something new every day, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's like discovering a new artist and just drawing something. And it's like just doing it daily through that repetitive process is the only thing that I can recommend. And not also feeling that you got to practice for 8 hours a day and just going 10 hours a day and I'm exhausted, I'm so tired. But if you're doing concentrated drawing, like I'm spending the next 20 minutes on this warm-up and I'm really going to learn and study it. So I would always recommend that. I always recommend figure drawing just whenever you can, just through, if you're copying it online or photos, because that's always going to help you. Anytime you got to draw a human, you're going to have to draw a human being the rest of your life, so you might as well learn how to do it. Not that you need to learn every muscle in the body. I know that I couldn't retain the information. I learned the basics, but if I needed to draw a zombie or a bodybuilder, I'm just going to, like you said, pull reference and I'm going to get that material that I need. But I think the training is just constantly be observing and paying attention. That means when you're watching a commercial, that means when you're watching a movie and you look at someone's mannerism or you look at a character. And so even though you don't have a pencil and paper in your hand, you're still making observation. I'm looking at that person's hairstyle. I'm looking at their body language and again, it's the constant discovery and exploration. You got to be like a scientist. That's what we are. We're constantly on this trajectory of discovering and trying to figure something else new that we didn't understand yesterday. I didn't know how to do cleanup yesterday. I didn't know how to draw a side view of a female. I didn't know how to draw the lips. Maybe I should practice that and be truthful to yourself. And if you can, try to find a mentor, someone that, even if it's just meeting them at a convention, just someone, a professional, where you can say, listen, this is what I'm struggling with. Stop showing it to, sometimes people are showing their stuff to the wrong people, right? Again, your friends are your friends for a reason. They're going to tell you, man, you rock on, you're awesome, you're so good, dude, it's awesome. Anything wrong with it? No, nothing's wrong with it, it's awesome. You can't have that. And I think that's very important. And I do just want to mention what I want people to think about. I just posted it on my Instagram the other day, and it was something that I was listening to a George Lucas he's on a podcast for something, and he said that he felt he wishes he didn't miss the hype of Star Wars, that he felt like he was always detached from it because all he ever saw were pieces of it. He never got to enjoy the thrill of it, seeing it all in one thing and go, wow, this is amazing. And that's what I realized listening to that. Wow, that's what happens to us in our art. We become so detached from it. We just look at the pieces, and we've gone to all this work, and we can't even identify when our own artwork is good sometimes, because someone seeing it with fresh eyes for the first time goes, man, that's really good. And what do? We go, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. It's not that, blow it off. And it's just like, and it's a true feeling that we have because we've kind of put so much time into it, blood, sweat, and tears, and trying to figure it out, that we can't even see it anymore. So you got to be careful with that, not to, number one, beat up on yourself, because that becomes a fear then. Oh, my stuff's not good enough. Now I can't share it on Instagram or post it because it's not good enough. And then this whole thing trickles into madness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any artists that you think are like key artists to look for if you're going to be character design? Also, like animals and things like that, do you recommend, because I mean, as a character designer, you have to design every character.
Right. Yeah.
And a cow is not a prop.
Right.
Right. So did you go through a period where you had to learn how to draw animals too? Because
absolutely. Yeah. I was going to the zoo before the internet and everything, taking my own video camera and recording the animals so that I could put them on pause, because I was having trouble in the beginning capturing them because they were moving so much and it was frustrating. So I wasn't enjoying the experience. And then I would just start drawing them from photos. I would buy books on North American animals or something and draw from those. Then I'd go to the zoo and start sketching from life once I got more comfortable doing things like that. But I think in regards, just always looking just for different artists. I would just encourage you, don't try to find necessarily any one artist, but try to, again, allow yourself to find something and like it. And that's first and foremost. Like, wow, I really like the way that artist draws hair, or I really like the way that artist draws folds in clothing, and try to find a variety of different artists. A lot of artists are blending together these days, right? They all sort of have the same style and the same look, and it's all just one thing. Try to find distinctive things, and that's going to help you go, oh, I can draw a different shape, and I can do an eye a different way, and it doesn't have to look like this. And I would just encourage that. So look at the real simplified cartoons. You may be called upon to design a Family Guy show, so you just got to know how to even do that. As much as you may be like, oh, it's just no fun, you're still going to learn how to do it. But to me, it comes down to the construction. So truly, that's what it is. Learn how to construct. Learn how to construct. I think when you learn how to construct a drawing, learn how to draw a human head, learn how to draw the human body, then you can start implementing feeling, and then you can start to design any style, any character, make yourself more versatile, move into that area that you want to eventually get into. It could be animation, comics, children's books, advertising, who knows? But now you've been building up the foundation. So I think that's the most important, is to learn the fundamentals. Is what I would advise everyone. Just learn that. Just again, it's not the fun part, but it's the most important, and it will benefit you the rest of your life.
Last question, and this is a little fun one that we can end on. Tito asks, juicy question, Steven Silver. How do you feel about people who have crushes on Kim Possible and Danny Phantom?
I think it's It's cool. You know, I've seen the pornos. Trust me. I've seen the animated porno versions where people. I met this one guy once. He was trying to convince me to get into that line of work. Just design Kim Possible naked. He's all, dude. This was a guy who was an ex-featured Disney guy who got into drawing naked animated characters and doing that. Was making a fortune, was telling me, dude, you can buy a house, you can do this, you got to get into this. I'm like, I just don't want to do it. It's just not my thing. I think it's cool and it's awesome that people find, if that's your thing, fine.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, we talk. Well, I don't know if Mike and I talk about that, but there's a whole kind of like bizarro world of people.
There's a version of everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. They love it.
Yeah, I think I told that story. The first convention I went to was a science fiction convention, and in the science fiction convention, these people had like binders of different books, of different art, and this one person had a collection of gay Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. Okay? And then there was this whole thing of like gay Chip and Dale, and I was like,
the Chipmunks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I was probably like 15, and I'd never seen, and I was like, okay, you know, but you realize then that it's probably all along been this subculture of fans. I think there are some people who, when they saw Bugs Bunny cross-dress, that was their shit right there.
Yeah, even the Tijuana Bibles, all that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is. There's something for everyone. Let's just put it that way, you know.
That's a great place to end. All right, Stephen, you want to give some shout outs to your socials and how people can follow you online?
Yeah, the best place is just Steven Silver. My name's spelled there with a PH7 because someone else had my name, so it's got a 7 on Instagram. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I have over 300 of my what I call art talks, which is just me talking about all this sort of stuff. So there's a bunch of videos there, and then I have my Silver Drawing Academy, which is where I'm there every day teaching, reviewing, and just doing a lot of fun stuff there.
Have you had any students who have
thank you
your stuff and gone on to become successful?
Oh yeah, many. I mean, there was because I've been teaching for so long. I've had they're working at the major studios. They got their lead character designers. Even won just Annie Awards for innovation for what they've done. So yeah, that's one thing I'm super, super proud of is, I've been teaching online for 15 years and just the growth and where I've seen these students, and when I meet them all the time and at conventions, and they tell me that, and not just working in the studios, but they're like, I started my own company. Now I became a children's book author now because of, so it's like led into many different career paths. And that's all I want to do. For me, that's success as a teacher. If I can take my knowledge, hand the tools onto you. And I'll be honest, a lot of these guys have, my honest opinion, way surpassed me. I mean, just unbelievable in what they've done. And that's all I can ask for is that, hey, do what you're going to do with it. Just have fun and know that it's possible.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We had a great time.
Great.
We could easily do a part 2. We just scratched the surface.
I feel motivated now.
For sure.
Yeah, like that's what it's about, getting the blood pumping. So thanks so much. We're going to close out, Stephen, if you want to hang out with us as we do our little sign off.
Right. Thanks so much, guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks. So thank you guys for joining us. For Disembodied Brett and my best bud, Mike Manley, I'm Jamar Nicholas. This has been Pencil to Pencil. Come back and check us out next Wednesday, where we're going to have another surprise guest. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube or Facebook, like, subscribe, follow, smash that alarm so you know what's coming up and you're never caught flat-footed. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. It's good to be back. And remember, Stephen, good to do it with us. Remember to wash those Kirby hands. There you go. Nice. That's a nice hand. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good